I'm Gold Derby editor Daniel Montgomery here with Umbrella Academy visual effects supervisor Everett Burrell. Now, season three streamed last summer, and it's the most apocalyptic the show has ever gotten, which is saying a lot. With the amount of power and destruction on display, like how did this season compare to the previous two, just in terms of the amount of visual effect shots?
It was our biggest season to date in terms of VFX for sure, both in shot count and our budget. It ballooned pretty high to really accommodate the creative needs of season three. I mean, massive amount of visual effects, the Kugelblitz being a huge part of that.
And how do you manage that budget, like when you've got so much content and visual splendor? Like, were there ever things that you couldn't do that you wanted to?
Yes, for sure. We always have to be fiscally responsible, believe it or not, in terms of trying to give Steve Blackman and all the creatives the best version of ourselves, but we also have to maintain a schedule and a budget, and that's always a challenge, especially on a show like this where sometimes the creative asks happen in the editorial process and not necessarily in the scripted process. Like, we find out things once we see a rough cut, like, oh, we need a wide shot of this that didn't exist, or we need a moment of pogo, or we need a Kugelblitz shot here. And it really is a process of going back and forth and trying to understand how to tell the best story, but on budget and on schedule.
And how much guidance do you get from the comics, when it comes to effects and sort of the aesthetic?
A lot. The Sparrow Academy, you see a glimpse of them in the comic, like in the corner of a couple panels. And we kind of like Christopher the Cube. You kind of see him like really briefly in the comic, and we had to really elaborate on that. And that's always kind of fun to get a little bit of taste from the comic, but at the same time, how do we bring that character and give it more of a backstory as well as a bigger life on screen? And that's always been a challenge.
And you mentioned Christopher the Cube. What was like creating that character and really giving him kind of personality and expressiveness?
It was a lot of fun. So we built a practical version of Christopher, done by my good friend Frank Ippolito in Burbank, his company called Thingergy. They built this like 3D printed resin cube based off a model that we did for the end of season two. He 3D printed it and made it in a translucent plastic with LED panels. We had that cube on set, and we could shoot a lot of that stuff practically of Christopher just floating there and changing colors. But Christopher, the way he communicates is by these weird sounds, but his surface changes colors depending on his mood. Like if he's sad, he's blue. If he's jealous, he's green. If he's angry, he's red. So, and then when he's neutral, he's kind of this weird, like glowy, like, I guess, like brilliant color just to keep him sort of neutral, like this, like natural white light to keep him like in a safe space. But then when he swings in color modes, it depended on the scene. And I know that it was really awkward trying to get him in position with the other actors. So a lot of times we would make him either elements that we shot on blue screen later, or he was CG.
You mentioned one of the major visual effects of the season is the Kugelblitz, which swallows all the matter on Earth. How do you conceptualize and what that should look like and how it should behave and everything surrounding that?
Well, it's funny. It started with zero-G footage of the space shuttle, where the astronauts would squirt water out in zero-G and understand that kind of blobby, weird, like zero-G mass. So it sort of started with that reference, and then we got into different forms like lava and heat and internal mechanisms of planets and suns. And it really started becoming more of a metaphor for a sun, as it was a kind of a black hole. It had the same energy. It had the same. So it's like a little baby sun in the basement. So eventually we kind of leaned into that sort of texture and movement reference from the sun, but in a much more sped up fashion.
And it emanates this, Kugel wave that sort of covers everything and then kind of contracts back in. Was that complex to do, especially as it's disintegrating things in its path?
Absolutely. So every time it would shoot out a wave, and Steve described it as a rubber band. So it would go out to a certain distance and then snap back in. And when it went out, it did no damage. But as it comes back in, is when it sort of like fragmented or materialized objects in its path. And it was random. Like it would do a building or a car or a person. It was just completely random on its way back in who got Kugelblitzed.
And as the destruction gets more pronounced, we're seeing more and more of the city kind of fall apart, and it kind of leads to one of my favorite shots of the scenes of the season, which is of Reginald and Five sitting on the edge of the world, basically, with all this destruction around them. They're on this kind of island almost. What was it like creating that scene and just that level of chaos?
It's funny. It's a really big leap of faith creatively for the audience and for us, because they're out in space on a little chunk of Earth. You'd think they'd be out of air, out of oxygen, but that's such a fun part about our show, is that a lot of those rules are kind of thrown out for just dramatic purposes. So we had them on this partial set build on a big blue screen stage that we built, and it was such a beautiful scene that Steve really wanted to make sure that we had the backgrounds were moving and showing story, that things are slowly being eaten up, but we didn't want to take away from the actor's performance. But both those actors are so amazing in that scene that we wanted to make sure that we were sort of like icing on the cake, and they were the cake of drama.
And eventually, the Kugelblitz consumes the Hotel Obsidian at the end of Seven Bells, and it's just this grand, explosive kind of destruction there. How challenging was that sequence to execute?
We shot a hotel in Hamilton, Ontario. That was sort of our foundation, our basis on the Hotel Obsidian as well. And then, it becomes the Hotel Oblivion eventually. But we had to LiDAR scan that entire block, that entire city block. And that data is really valuable in order to like disintegrate it and add on to it. Because, it was a condo complex nowadays. So we had to rebuild a certain portion of it to make it look period, because the top half was added on very modern day. And Steve wanted that very classic New York, sort of Chicago hotel look. So that was a big deal, trying to just get the hotel looking right. And then we had to slowly disintegrate it through a variety of effect simulations and compositing techniques. But it was a lot of work to get that place to disintegrate.
And of course, you mentioned the Sparrows, and Christopher is one of them, but you also have the rest of that team, and they have their own unique powers. In particular, that very first fight scene between them and the Umbrellas, is basically a showcase of everything that both teams can do. How do you work in the visual effects with the choreography, with the camera work? How complex is that?
Amazingly complex. Our director Jeremy Webb and the DP Neville Kidd, myself and Steve. That was one of the episodes that was heavily storyboarded and previs to very, very heavily detailed, planning in order to, understand the effects and which powers the Sparrows have and which powers our original Academy family have. And there's a lot of complex stuff in there, and learning. I love Faye's sparrows, or that fly from her body. I think they're absolutely amazing. I'm sorry, her ravens. Sorry, ravens. Her ravens that fly out of her body are incredible. And that was a really big deal to get those CG birds just right. We shot a real bird, a real raven on blue screen. He was sort of our reference for a lot of that, but that was incredibly detailed. One of the hardest effects we did was when Five kisses his imaginary version of Dolores, the mannequin, because of COVID rules. We were heavily COVID restricted on that season. He wasn't allowed to actually kiss the actress. So he was kissing a ping pong ball on one side, and we pull him out, and she was kissing a ping pong ball on the other side. So it was really a challenge to get those two things to line up. And that's one of the hardest shots we did in all of the season, just to get that kind of passion, the kiss and the love and the tenderness on a ping pong ball. It was a challenge.
And we also get the return of Pogo, who has become a jaded tattoo artist. Was it fun to reimagine that character in this entirely new context, in this new timeline?
Oh, especially the dojo scene in episode 306 called Marigold, where we see Pogo training the team in his dojo outfit, which was based on the comics, sort of the reverse of the Bruce Lee outfit. Instead of being sort of yellow orange with black stripes, it was reversed in the comics. So he had a black suit with yellow stripes, and that was such a great outfit. And Weta was such a great partner in champion those designs, because every time Weta does Pogo for a season, they add all the things they've learned on their feature film, so that his hair got an upgrade, his outfit got an upgrade, his muscles, all every time they do it, he gets an upgrade. So it was really fun to see him in that new outfit. But the biker Pogo was the most fun, because we went through a lot of great reference, everything from the Hells Angels to Sons of Anarchy, all those great shows and movies that had these amazing looking iconic bikers. And just we had him on this Harley, and we did this turntable with the sunglasses, and his, like, does he have his hair down, or is it in a ponytail? How long is his beard, his tattoos, his jewelry? It was so much fun, just to get into that. And we had to bulk him up, when he was in the trailer talking to Five, he just was a little too weak looking. So they had to add muscle, like he's been working out in the backyard, So it was a lot of fun. And Weta did an amazing job on revising him for 306.
You've been nominated for Emmys twice for this show. Which category are you entering this year? The visual effects in a season or a single episode?
Single episode 306, titled Marigold. And that's with Pogo and the fight at the drive-in between Victor and Harlan, and all these amazing effects. One of our biggest episodes for sure.
Are there any effects from the season that you're especially proud of that maybe a lay viewer might not realize how difficult it is? You mentioned that kiss from the fight scene. Yeah, that could be one of them. Any others?
Oh my gosh, there's so many weird little things that we do, like adding signs, or especially in the hotel, we had to enhance a lot of the room numbers because you couldn't see them. They were just kind of dark, so we had to do a lot of weird enhancements to that. But one of my favorite things, which I was really flattered, because I got to direct a lot of the fight in I think it's episode 3 between Lila and Five in the bathroom. There's this big fight where Lila's naked and Five is fighting her. So trying to choreograph that fight around a naked actor, she wasn't really naked when we shot it, but the intent was she was fully nude. So trying to choreograph and paint out all the naughty bits, based on, and it wasn't, again, they're all wearing flesh bathing suits and all that stuff. So there's nothing bad on set, but trying to, fix those moments when you see the back of a bathing suit, or all that subtle things in the motion of the scene was really fun. And I'm real proud of that moment.
I want to congratulate you on your work on the show. That gets bigger and bigger and bigger in exciting ways. And best of luck on hopefully Emmy nomination number 3 for Umbrella Academy coming up.
That would be awesome. You know, Pogo won the VS award for best character last year, and I was so proud of the team. And we're hoping that that sort of enthusiasm carries over to this season.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me about it. It's been a pleasure.
You bet, bud. Bye.